Biggest winner of Week 15 was who?
The biggest winner of Week 15. I always stall when I do this because I have to figure out what I sent you, and I think it's a pretty obvious one for this week, and it's one that's like still attainable in shallow leagues. Jerick McKinnon, he's the guy for the Chiefs. He is their best running back moving forward. It was another week where he played the majority of snaps. He had the high value touches. He was doing great things with the football, and I don't know. I think that he's going to be the guy that the Chiefs are going to trust moving down the stretch as their main running back. He doesn't make mistakes. He's clearly still a playmaker. He's a winner. I think he's a must-start fantasy running back moving forward. And I don't think we can say the same thing of Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, Pacheco lost a little momentum there after he fumbled. He did finish pretty strong in that game, had some good runs toward the end, but McKinnon, look, I mean, these 2 straight games with 32 or more PPR fantasy points. That's insane.
Yeah.
He also has a pretty good target share over the last 7 games. The first 7 games of the season, his target share, McKinnon's target share was never higher than 10.3%. It's been 16% or higher in 3 of his last 4 games. It's been 20%, 19.5% or higher in 3 of his last 6 games. So he's just getting thrown the ball more.
Right.
I can't help but think, Dave, though, that he's the kind of player that could totally let you down. Right? He doesn't have that many carries. I can't promise you that Mahomes is going to throw to him that much. His touchdowns have been a little bit fluky, He's got
certainly last week, yes.
He's got 4 touchdown catches in his last 3 games, 12 for his career, and 4 in his last 3 games. From 10 yards, 56 yards, 20 yards, a 2-yarder. So I don't know where you're going to rank him next week in Seattle. They struggle against pass catching running backs, but I don't even know if it matters. What do you think?
What is the number one thing you want from a football player in fantasy football?
I don't know.
The number one thing that I look for a player. I mean, that would be great. Opportunity.
Yeah.
We always look for receivers that get a lot of targets. We want quarterbacks that have a lot of pass attempts. We want running backs who get a lot of touches. We want running backs who are going to get high value touches. Here's an example of what McKinnon did this week. 62% of the snaps. So right there, he's playing more running back than anybody else on Kansas City. 11 of 12 snaps on 3rd and 4th downs. That tells you that he's playing in situations where they're passing the ball a lot. 5 of 6 snaps inside the 10. That means he's playing on snaps when they're near the goal line. It's a no-brainer. He's getting great opportunities. He's not getting a ton of carries and all that, but at least he's giving you opportunities that other players, certainly not on the Chiefs, are getting. Now, Pacheco might get more carries and maybe more rushing yards in a game, but I'm all in on McKinnon as a number 2 fantasy running back moving forward. And next week they're taking on Seattle. You just said it. They're terrible against running backs who catch passes. Who else is going to do that on this team?
I know, but it's just a matter of, is he going to catch the passes? Do you buy the catches? Because they were pretty low for most of the year.
Right. So here's the way I look at that.
Let's wrap it up on him. Go ahead.
Kansas City was trying to find out what their running back usage was going to be. They drafted Pacheco. They still had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They brought in Ronald Jones, and they had Jerick McKinnon. And they realized, probably right about now or maybe a week or 2 ago, that McKinnon's their best bet. And that's what I think we're going to see. I would be stunned if McKinnon is only playing a third of the snaps next week, and it's Pacheco who's dominating.
Right. Okay. Biggest loser. Who's the biggest loser?
Literally a big loser, D'Onta Foreman, who was second on the Panthers in playing time by a mile. Chuba Hubbard, 63% of the snaps, so he had a Jerick McKinnon-like work rate. D'Onta did not play the majority of the snaps near the goal line. He only played 30% of the snaps. I do not know if there was an injury in the game. He did not give you 1 full fantasy point in non-PPR. This is a problem. The Panthers have a schedule where I expect them to be competitive against the Lions. Then it's the Bucs. We'll see what that run defense looks like by then. And then the Saints. These are all still 3 teams that are pretty good against the run. Not easy matchups for them. Games where the Panthers will be trailing. Games that are probably going to favor Chuba Hubbard. And so D'Onta Foreman will be ranked behind Jerick McKinnon in fantasy rankings in week number 16.
The other 2 are Saturday guys, Saturday night guys. Raheem Mostert, Saturday Night Live. Raheem Mostert, 156 total yards at Buffalo. Hell yeah. And Dawson Knox, 2 pretty solid games in a row, but this one was outstanding. 98 yards and a touchdown. Is that right? Is that right? Against
That's
Miami?
right.
Okay. Like,
I mean, I'll double check for you if you really want to know, but
I'll do it. But go ahead and talk about Mostert and Knox.
yeah, 6 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown for Dawson Knox. I'll start with Knox. He's just been involved the last couple of weeks, and you've seen it from Buffalo's offense. They're looking for someone to help take some pressure off of Stephon Diggs. It hasn't been Gabriel Davis. They just brought back Cole Beasley. They need somebody in this offense to step up and be that guy, and it looks like Dawson Knox is going to get that opportunity. So as tight ends go, we just talked about it with Dalton Schultz. The fact that, like, if Dalton Schultz gets 6 targets and maybe gets open in the end zone, that's a startable fantasy tight end. Well, Dawson Knox is doing more than that, and he's got a hell of a quarterback to do it with, and they've got Chicago in week 16. So Dawson Knox, you'll find him in my top 12, maybe even top 8, maybe even top 6. What the hell, man? He's been involved. It's going to be easy to go and make an argument to start Dawson Knox next week. And as for Raheem Mostert, you knew that the Dolphins had to do something different with their offense, and what they did was run the football. And in the first half and really throughout the whole game, Adam, I thought Mostert looked great.
Yeah.
And if Jeff Wilson's out, then Mostert's going to be a dynamite must-start type of fantasy running back for them. And they've got the Packers at home next week on Christmas.
Yeah.
I think that's a good matchup for them, followed by the Patriots and then the Jets in week 18.
But, the bigger question to me, like, obviously it's easy to start him if Wilson plays. I think he's. I think
if Wilson doesn't play.
Yeah. But if Wilson's out,
I still think he's a start if Wilson plays.
I think he's the number one guy now. I would think
I do too.
He's the number one guy now, Raheem Mostert. Yep. Okay, we're gonna.
And it's crazy to think that he lost a touchdown to Ahmed in the game.
Yes,
because Ahmed just right place, right time type of thing.
That game, that Bills-Dolphins game, was very much the game of the useless fantasy touchdowns. You had Diggs didn't score, Gabe Davis didn't score, but yeah, actually then Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill got going. But who caught some of those touchdowns for the Bills? It's like their backup tight end. I forget. It was useless. But okay, let's go to your losers here. Amari Cooper was at home. What? He only had 9.8 fantasy points against Baltimore. It's so funny that it was, you should draft Amari Cooper. He might not be that good, but then when Deshaun Watson comes back, he's going to win you your league.
And it's been the exact opposite.
And then Heath was like, "Oh, Dave Montgomery's the best running back I've ever seen." I was like, "Heath, I've always liked David Montgomery, and you try to sit him." And I was like, "No, you should start him." It's is that how it works? Is that how it went, Heath?
Right. I think you took some unnecessary crap on Twitter today, and I almost felt bad about it, especially when you said that it didn't have anything to do with YPC. You're right. It didn't have anything to do with YPC. You said David Montgomery was a bad running back. You didn't say he had a bad YPC. You said he was a bad running back.
It had a little bit to do with YPC. It was more about the Eagles. It was an Eagles matchup. But yeah, he only had 12 carries, so I did kind of get that part right.
You were basically right about David Montgomery this week.
I agree, except for the 2 touchdowns. I agree.
Yeah. And the 4.4 yards per carry.
Which was a shock, which seems like it was a mistake in the box score. But all right, Dave, your losers are Amari Cooper, Chris Olave, and Deontay Foreman, who you already talked about. But do you have faith in Cooper next week against the Saints and Olave next week at the Browns? They'll be facing each other.
Yeah, it's funny how it works out that way. I will have more faith in Olave than I will in Cooper. It's 3 games now of Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson, and it's 3 games below 10 PPR points. So a little frustrating. And he was close to scoring against the Ravens, but it didn't happen. And it's not just New Orleans. It's also Washington 2 games after that, Pittsburgh to wrap up the season. I think it's not the easiest schedule in the world for Amari Cooper. I can't consider him anything more than a flex moving forward. So I'm downgrading expectations for him. And I'm downgrading expectations for Olave. One guy who's been playing a lot and doing a lot for the Saints lately, it had been Rashid Shaheed. And then Juwan Johnson came out of nowhere and scored 2 touchdowns today. They're finding guys to throw to who aren't getting the type of coverage that Olave was getting. And it's hurting Olave, and it sucks for his fantasy prospects. But I think New Orleans has some options in their passing game as they finish up the stretch. And I think they're going to want to see what they have in Shaheed and in Juwan Johnson to wrap up the year.
I actually think, I don't know necessarily that they're going to focus on developing Shaheed and Juwan Johnson at the expense of their first-round rookie. I think they're probably more interested in seeing what they have in Chris Olave. But
okay.
But Juwan Johnson, I'm actually a little bit more interested in.
Mhm.
His most recent game, he got hurt and played the 49ers. Only
Yeah.
played 47% of the snaps. But the 3 games before that, he was in the 40s in terms of yards and had a touchdown in each of those. And it had scored in 4 of his last 5 games. He's probably really close to a top 12 tight end since week 6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's probably true. And the interesting thing about it is that Johnson went from a guy who was kind of making plays in garbage time, like after the fact type of plays, and then he started to get involved in the offense overall, and it's been encouraging. And as for them trying to develop these guys, I don't know if develop is the right word that I would use for Shaheed and Juwan Johnson. It's just to see what they have in them. They know Olave is going to be a part of the team next year, and they've been trying to develop Olave all year long. Have you looked at his numbers in his last 6 games? He's had 1 game in his last 6, and it might be 7 now, where he's been below 15, a lot of them below 12 PPR fantasy points.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know how you can trust him.
Well, they don't throw much, and he was through 21 passes today, I think, right?
Looking at his last 6 games before this week, he had 10, 13, 7, 21, 11, 10.
That's a
Yeah,
number
I don't
3
want
receiver.
I don't want to start that.
It's, well, if you
I
play in
thought
a
it
2
would-
wide receiver league without a flex, sure.
No, you'll start him if it's a 3 receiver league with a flex.
He was a little bit better than Chris Moore, but I think if you look at him the last 6 games, he had that one huge play against the Rams. He's just really not doing much. He hasn't scored it. That's basically been his only impactful moment in the last 6 games. I don't think we can call Chris Olave a must start.
No, not a must start. I just think you're probably, it just depends on the depth of your league. He's definitely not a start in a 2 wide receiver league where you don't have a flex.
If I can make it to the next week where I have Olave, I'll have a tough decision between him and Christian Kirk against the Jets.
That's not a tough decision.
It is a very, I mean, come on. The Jets are awesome, man. You don't think
And what did Kirk do today?
he ended up with a pretty good game? I think he had about
He
7
needed every bit of it in the 4th quarter.
He was struggling a bit.
6 for 92, 10 targets.